Baltimore City Public Schools present an independent audit into grade changing, but only on the last school year. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore examines how that could have impacted the audit's findings and why it might not show the whole picture. Baltimore's fire union bashed for comments toward mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon.
37 years, never, ever heard the word mutt used in reference to anybody.
The fallout from their words, some are calling racist. Critical officer shortages plaguing cities across the country. A look at the drastic changes other departments are making to how police respond to calls for help. And if we could see similar action here. Violence erupts in Baltimore. Multiple shootings leave 3 dead in just 24 hours.
I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was absurd.
How residents say this is affecting their everyday life.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
The final grades that were moved from fail to pass was 4. Correct or incorrect?
That's correct.
Tonight, an audit finds no evidence of widespread grade changing in Baltimore City schools, but the report only reviewed last school year after the school system had implemented new policies following a Fox 45 investigation.
Project Baltimore's Chris Papps joins us live with the findings presented just hours ago to the Baltimore City School Board. Chris?
Well, Kai and Mary, a consulting firm, Alvarez and Marshall, conducted the audit after an investigation by the Inspector General for Education found more than 12,500 failing grades were improperly changed to passing between 2016 and 2020. The IG had called for an independent audit of those years in question, but the district only agreed to look at last school year. And this is what the auditors found. The audit looked at more than 18 million grade entries and found just about 250,000 grade changes. That's about 1.4% of all the grades. Of those 250,000, about 8,700 were final grades. And just 4 of those, just 4, were failing grades that were changed to passing. The audit found the vast majority of changes to final grades were the result of late grade entries, meaning they were not entered before the final marking period had ended. Now, there's a lot that led up to this audit. Project Baltimore first began reporting on grade changing in Baltimore City schools back in 2017, 7 years ago. We interviewed teachers, parents, and students who said rounding up failing grades to passing was a common practice. Following our reporting, the Inspector General for Education launched that investigation that we talked about. And in 2022, we learned just how big the problem was when the IG released his findings of the 12,500 improper grade changes.
And now, Chris, we know the school system agreed to this audit, but it's looking just at the 22-23 school year, not the years that the IG investigation looked at, correct?
Correct. So the IG, he looked at grade changing between 2016 and 2020. Now, we know in 2019, city schools passed a new grade changing policy, and it was again adjusted in 2022. And one of the things it did was that it required principals to notify teachers in writing before students' grades are adjusted. Now, theoretically, city schools had time to correct the problems the IG found before the 2022-2023 audit, because this audit was just conducted last year. So we asked Dr. Santelises about that after the meeting.
We are moving this review, which was an outside review from actual experts, showed that, and I think that's what the public needs to take confidence in. And actually, the public should take confidence in the notation that we have one of the strongest policies in the state of Maryland. So maybe it might be time to review in other places to see what's going on. But what we know from tonight's report is Baltimore City has a strong policy. We're improving, and we're really glad that outside experts found that.
Was the IG wrong in his report from 2016?
You would have to, you'd have to ask him, Chris. But have a great night. It's been a long night.
Do you feel that? Now, based on the findings, the audit did make some recommendations to encourage timely grade entries and strengthen the infrastructure to support consistency and accountability in entering grades.
You know, hearing all this, you would think that they would want to really audit all of it just to get a feel for what was going on in the past years.
Yes.
Is that possible to happen?
Is it possible? Yeah. So the IG, he originally wanted the school system to get an independent audit of 2016 to 2020, but under Maryland state law, the school system has to agree to the audit for it to happen. And the school system didn't agree to the audit. And until they do, you can't audit those years. That's why 2022, 2023 was audited, because the school system allowed it.
All right, very interesting. Chris Papps, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Well, a group representing black firefighters is bashing the city's fire officers union. They're criticizing the comments the city fire union president made about former Mayor Sheila Dixon ahead of the union endorsement of Mayor Brandon Scott.
Certainly they could have used a better term than mutt to describe Miss Dixon or any other female or any other candidate. The only time we ever heard the word mutt was when describing a dog.
Mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon responded to those comments as well, saying they speak more of the writer's character than her own.
As the first African-American woman who was elected to the city council and the first woman mayor elected, this is nothing new. You know, I have faced attacks of this nature throughout my career. And to use derogatory terms like that, I think, is degrading, and it just reflected of those individuals who sent the letter out.
Well, the comments came in an email sent to Baltimore County firefighters on Friday asking them to attend yesterday's endorsement announcement. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with more on the outrage. Keith?
Well, Kai, the latest concern over this matter is coming from a group that says this is not about politics and it's not about Sheila Dixon. They say they're speaking out because, simply put, what happened was wrong. It's their monthly meeting at the Vulcan Blazers headquarters in Northwest Baltimore, an African-American fraternal organization representing more than 300 full-time firefighters and paramedics in the city. Bill Jones, president, stacking copies of what's to be top of tonight's agenda.
It was appalling. It was disturbing.
An email laced with what Jones calls a derogatory term aimed at mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon, the word mutt.
Mutt is probably the lowest class of a dog. And so to refer to it as to an individual is certainly very disrespectful.
An email written by Joshua Fannin, president of the city's Firefighters Officers Union.
It's really sad that an individual who has a responsibility to be the president of the locals would use that kind of language for towards anybody running for politicians, anybody running for office.
The email obtained by Fox 45 News and revealed Monday. Fannin sent the email Friday to Baltimore County's Fire Union president, John Sabega, who shared it with his members. Fannin invited members of the Baltimore County Firefighters Union to Monday's event, where the firefighters unions endorsed Mayor Brandon Scott. The email reads in part, the Baltimore locals are engaged in an epic struggle this election year, 2024, between a fire department-friendly incumbent and a mutt of a past mayor. The word triggering reaction from Dixon.
Again, to me, it's more derogatory, and you know, I just believe in taking the high road. Clearly, I would have used a different term. I mean, I would have focused on your candidate that you support and why you support him, and left it at that.
We reached out to Sabega and Fannin Monday. Sabega saying he only shared the email, didn't write it. Fannin says he meant no harm, only used the word commonly used in the fire service. Particularly, he says, with the firefighting organization, FOOS, or the Fraternal Order of Leatherheads Society. On the group's website, the definition of the word in question.
Which is a mutt is someone or thing that will abuse and mistreat a firefighter. And that would be the only consideration that I would have in using it in any day speech, and in particular in that email.
Still, for Jones, it's a troublesome word.
never, ever heard the word mutt used in reference to anybody.
And tonight, after getting feedback from his members, Jones also questioning the firefighters union's endorsement of Scott.
It appears that membership was never canvassed to determine what direction their membership wanted to go in as far as endorsing a candidate. And it looks like the communications that they sent out was to someone in Baltimore County to come in and give them a hand, because apparently the demographics they were looking for in support of Mr. Scott wasn't what they were getting.
Well, the Vulcans voted tonight to send a letter to Mayor Brandon Scott, the city council, and also to both local firefighter unions, formally denouncing the language used in that email. Now, we should say we did reach out to Fannin for comment on tonight's story. We have not heard back. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. The Vulcan Blazers aren't the only ones upset with the wording. Fox 45 News spoke with one county firefighter who wants to remain anonymous about her concerns over the email.
As a woman, it kind of puts me in the terms of thinking of, first of all, a mutt tends to be an undesirable dog. And then on top of that, it reminded me of B-word. Like, it's a derogatory term that just, like, it's just offensive in general to call a black woman a undesirable in a sense.
And when it comes to the endorsement, it's a change in messaging from the fire union, which has been critical of the Scott administration in the past. Less than 2 weeks ago, the union told Fox 45 News it didn't receive any pandemic relief money from the mayor despite submitting a request. Fox 45 News questioned union leaders about that yesterday.
About a week and a half ago, you told my colleague you were frustrated that the fire department still hadn't gotten any money from ARPA to help with improvements. How do you square the difference between hearing those frustrations a week and a half ago and now standing with the mayor to endorse him?
It was a communication breakdown. I feel like I didn't realize that those funds were being worked on at the time. And now that I know that, that's why we have those funds available, and the mayor's working hard to give us a lot of those ARPA money, so it's definitely going to help us out.
Meantime, the staffing shortages and the frustrations with it have been problems for years. In 2022, first responders complained about the department's radio communications. One person even threatened to drive into the Inner Harbor over the radio. Last year, officials say no ambulances were available when a father called for help while his child was having a seizure.
Dixon calls the union's endorsement a political move, claiming it was the city council that approved ARPA funding for the fire department, not the mayor's administration.
It's very clear the city council thought about the fire department when they transferred the money. Now we're 2 months away from an election and everything. And so the mayor's finally working for his agencies and the citizens of Baltimore. So the voters have to make decisions and choices. And it's very clear that he's fighting to keep his job.
Fox 45 News will continue to follow any new developments in this story. You can find our complete coverage online at foxbaltimore.com.
Good evening. It was a gorgeous day today. Temperatures reaching the 70s almost everywhere. A few places just barely missing that, but don't worry. If you missed it today, you'll likely see that again tomorrow. Fairly cool out there right now. We're in the upper 50s. We're not going to see much of anything tonight. Calm winds or very near that west around 7 miles per hour. We're still in the middle of a big warm up. We're going to talk about that, but we also have a chance of rain and also a big cool down that's not far away. We're going to talk about that coming up.
Gerard, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, as some state lawmakers look to pinch pennies in the face of a budget deficit, others are pushing a $1 billion climate plan. A look at what's in that plan and whether Maryland can afford it. The rising temperatures came with a rise in violence in some parts of Baltimore City. Which section of the city saw 3 murders in just 24 hours, and why some people in Butchers Hill say they're not sure their neighborhood is as safe as they thought. In the face of widespread staffing shortages, Pittsburgh police will no longer respond to non-emergency calls. Right after the break, Fox 45 News questions whether we'll see the same thing happen here in Baltimore.
Widespread staffing shortages are impacting police departments across the country, forcing some to resort to unconventional measures.
Pittsburgh police will no longer respond to non-emergency calls, and there are concerns over whether Baltimore may need to employ a similar strategy. The Baltimore Police Department is short around 600 officers compared to just over 100 in Pittsburgh.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor looks into why time may be running out to find a solution.
As Mayor Brandon Scott continues to tout a reduction in citywide homicides and shootings.
What we're going to focus on is continuing having, as we're talking right now, a 17% reduction in violent crime on top of a historic reduction last year.
The 10 rows of red on BPD's latest data sheet revealing quality of life crimes continue to rise. Compared to this time last year, burglaries up 6%, robberies up 20%, property crimes up 27%, and auto thefts up 79%.
Is that not a priority for you?
No, it's very much a priority, and I think you and I talked about this recently. When you look at the numbers of arrests that the police department, our fine women and men in the police department have made for things like auto thefts, for things like carjacking, for things like larceny, we can see that the arrests are happening. But as you very well know, what's happening is the same people are being let out.
Mayor Scott calling on lawmakers in Annapolis to seek solutions for the city, while local law enforcement leaders,
because they're short, they have to make certain decisions on their deployment.
Say the rise in crime stems from a lack of officers here in Baltimore. According to BPD, at last check, the department nearly 600 officers short.
Unfortunately, right now, the police department, they just simply don't have the resources necessary to commit time and effort to property crimes, quality of life crime.
In an internal email uncovered by Fox 45, Police Union President Mike Mancuso saying officers are overworked and underpaid, pushing staffing levels to a breaking point. Mancuso going on to call current contract negotiations a slap in the face, urging union members to vote against newly proposed wages. Mancuso claiming it would be, quote, the first time FOP3 files for arbitration. That alone is a testament as to how truly terrible this offer is. And BPD isn't alone. Pittsburgh's police force spread so thin in a recent press release, the city announcing officers will no longer respond in person to calls that aren't considered in-progress emergencies. Instead, calls related to crimes such as theft, harassment, and burglary alarms will be handled by a new telephone recording unit. Considering Pittsburgh is just 110 officers short, law enforcement expert and former police officer Melissa Pinkleton,
they're going to have to take the resources and reallocate them,
believes Baltimore could soon follow suit.
That does not make up for long-term being down 400 and 500 officers.
As departments nationwide continue hemorrhaging officers year after year, Pinkleton warning against putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, saying long-term solutions include increasing salaries and strengthening support from elected officials.
When you have your leaders, your commissioner and your mayor not acknowledging the problem, making efforts to change it, and just pushing it off on somebody else, then nothing will change. And the morale will continue to go down.
And staffing likely declining along with it.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Quality of life crimes like car thefts are common across Baltimore. The city police department is reporting nearly 1,600 car thefts so far this year, on the heels of more than 11,000 in 2023. At a news conference last November, the police announced nearly 700 arrests in relation to the car thefts at the time. That equates to about a 7% clearance rate.
Well, some residents are finding a way to take matters into their own hands. Fox 45 News obtained surveillance video of an attempted car theft last week in Medfield. The thieves were inside the car for more than 20 minutes before a bystander right there was driving by and shouted at them to get away. The victim says he now disconnects his battery and deflates his tires every night to help deter thieves.
You should never go through any of this. You shouldn't have to flatten your tires, take out your battery, add a bar to your car, make sure that it's protected at all costs. It shouldn't be like that.
And you may remember this last month near Patterson Park, our crews counted dozens of piles of shattered glass left over from attempted car thefts and break-ins. Some say they've learned to steer clear of certain streets to park on, while others say they're debating moving out of the city.
I'll illegally park on the smaller streets before I'll park on Patterson or Euston. We're moving out at the end of this month. We are moving to Catonsville.
I went to my car this Monday,
the same window was shattered. Got me to thinking, like, is this a safe place for me to be?
Even with the carjackings and with the broken windows, that like it just wasn't safe anymore where I lived.
Well, around that time, a frustrated resident in southeast Baltimore came to Fox 45 News after he says he saw two men sorting through a dozen stolen packages. He says police arrived 20 minutes later while the suspects were still in his line of vision, but he claims the officers refused to ask the suspects any questions. That brings us to our question of the day. Will the city's handling of quality of life crimes change the way you vote this year? So far, 92% of people who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to share your opinion.
King Henry hopes to bring a Super Bowl crown to Baltimore. Coming up, a closer look at Derrick Henry's new Ravens contract.
I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Coming up, the Capitol Hill testimony Tuesday that had both Republicans and Democrats upset.
I wish we could just continue this pattern of weather forever. It has just been perfect today with just a little bit of a breeze, but we are going to be talking about some changes coming. In the meantime, it is feeling like spring out there, tracking some showers for this weekend. We also have a big cold blast that is on the way. We're going to tell you when that is going to arrive coming up.
You can watch Fox 45 News for free anytime on Amazon Fire TV or Samsung TV Plus. Special Counsel Robert Hur testifies on Capitol Hill this afternoon, hours after the Justice Department gave Congress the transcripts of Hur's interview with President Biden regarding his classified documents case. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
Special Counsel Robert Hur on Capitol Hill Tuesday, taking heat from both sides. Republicans upset he didn't recommend criminally charging President Biden for retaining classified documents.
They were found in President Biden's garage?
In Wilmington, Delaware, yes.
And in his basement den?
Also in the same home, yes.
Democrats furious with the reasoning behind the decision, including Her's analysis. A jury might view Biden as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
You used your report to trash and smear President Biden.
Her arguing it's proper protocol for prosecutors to consider how juries might react to any defendant when deciding whether or not to bring a case.
These are the types of issues that prosecutors analyze every day. The evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue.
Democrats accusing her of playing politics.
You don't gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign.
Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I shape, sanitize, omit portions of my reasoning and explanation to the Attorney General for political reasons.
No, I suggest that you not shape your report for political reasons, which is what you did.
That did not happen, Congressman. That did not happen.
Republicans accusing the White House of attempting to meddle.
Did the White House try to weigh in with your investigation on elements of that report and, frankly, get the report changed?
They did request certain edits and changes.
When the report first came out, the president slammed her for writing about a part of their interview where Biden couldn't remember what year his son Beau died.
How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business.
The newly released transcripts back up Her's account that Biden struggled to remember the year his son died. The transcripts also show Biden was the one to bring up his son's death, not the special counsel. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
Well, that brings us to our national question of the day. Are your concerns increasing or decreasing surrounding President Biden's mental fitness? So far, 73% of those who voted say increasing. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab.
We can chew gum and walk at the same time and get more done with the limited taxpayer dollars we have.
Climate advocates say the state budget won't stop Maryland from reaching its green goals, while others argue the plan is already on its last legs.
3 homicide victims over the past 24 hours in Baltimore, where police stand in their search for suspects.
We are following three big stories at 10:30. State lawmakers are moving forward with a multi-billion-dollar climate plan, something advocates say we can't afford to delay, while others worry we can't afford the price tag. Maryland service tax proposal will not move forward this year, but lawmakers already have their eyes on next session. How the everything tax could impact you. And 3 people have been killed in Baltimore over the past 24 hours as city police investigate at least a half dozen shootings. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has a closer look at that violence. Jeff, what are you learning?
Well, many residents are struggling to understand this violence tonight. Communities once plagued with burglaries and break-ins are tonight dealing with bullets and death. It was a few minutes before dinner when neighbors were numbed by the sounds of a homicide. And it was like pop, 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 pop. It was here in the heart of Butcher's Hill, where police say a 33-year-old man was gunned down while walking along Chester Street.
It was a group of people in a vehicle that pulled up, and they got out of the vehicle and then confronted the victim.
Witnesses say the group fired several rounds and sped away, leaving the victim to die here at Chester and Baltimore streets.
I think it's absolutely mind-blowing that a potential murder could have been in this neighborhood.
It was a group of people in a vehicle that pulled up, and they got out of the vehicle and then confronted the victim.
This is the 3rd homicide in the city's southeast district in the past 24 hours. About 8 o'clock last night, police say a 42-year-old man was shot in the head on Pulaski Highway. Just before noon today, officers found another man shot to death on North Glover Street. All 3 killings are not believed to be related, but so far police have made no arrests.
It does leave my anxiety to be very high at this point.
Auto theft in Butcher's Hill is up 140%.
Arch McCowan tracks crime in the Southeast District and says until now, most violent crimes have been crimes of opportunity. Police believe today's homicide is a targeted attack.
You know, crime's not caused by earthquakes, so crime is caused by people, and so it becomes like, you know, how do you control this behavior?
For now, residents are on edge and on alert as a very violent day comes to a close.
This is something that I rarely ever see on this side of town.
Well, we're told surveillance cameras did capture much of that attack in Butcher's Hill today and were able to provide police with some very good leads. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Police also say a 20-year-old was shot along Edmondson Avenue near the Edmondson Village Shopping Center. The victim was taken to the hospital. This is the second shooting near that shopping center in less than a month. And in January of 2023, a teen was killed, 4 others hurt in a mass shooting near the Popeyes in that shopping center. The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office takes issue with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement surrounding the city's citation docket meant to tackle quality of life crimes. The office sent a Memorandum of Understanding, or what's known as an MOU, to Monzi last year, but tonight we're learning that still hasn't been signed. Monzi points to leadership changes for the delay.
It's something that came in right around the time of the leadership transition, so it's something I had to take a look at. I would say the other piece is that we needed to make sure that we understood the services that we were being asked to provide and that we had the capacity to take them on. I'm confident after reviewing that we do.
In the meantime, we did have to reach out to other partners in order to fill that hole, so we do have something in place.
Well, the state's attorney's office tells Fox 45 News they have a meeting scheduled with Monzi next week to hammer out the amendments. But as of right now, the MOU still hasn't been signed. New tonight, Mayor Brandon Scott announced his intent to nominate Khalil Zayed as the new director of the Department of Public Works. Zayed led the DPW in Champaign, Illinois, and before that served in Baltimore city government as deputy mayor of operations and director of transportation. DPW has been without a director for more than 8 months since the former director, Jason Mitchell, stepped down at the end of June. The department faced a number of issues under his tenure, including the E. coli water contamination and the state takeover of the Back River wastewater treatment plant. Not long after Mitchell announced he would leave the department, Fox 45 News obtained a recording of him talking about how the job took a toll on him.
This agency, this city, not you, began to compromise who I was as a man and as a professional. I woke up today, I felt free. I don't feel oppressed any longer. I don't feel enslaved.
The new director will start with the department on Monday. City Council will have to approve the appointment. And you can find more on Jason Mitchell's departure and the problems surrounding DPW on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Prince George's County Police say 2 people were killed and a third injured in a shooting at a recording studio in Laurel early this morning. Sources tell our sister station in D.C. that the shooting stemmed from an argument between rival groups. The third victim was taken to the hospital for treatment. We'll keep you updated as we learn more.
A new warning from Howard County Police after they say a woman was attacked on a jogging trail in Centennial Park in Ellicott City. Police tweeting about the incident, saying a man in a black cloth medical mask and a plain black baseball cap grabbed her from behind and hit her around 6:30 this morning. Police say they are increasing patrols in the park and are encouraging everybody to be on the lookout for anything suspicious.
State senators are demanding transparency from the Department of Juvenile Services, proposing a policy that would require DJS to be more open about the children under its supervision. Now, this bill calls for DJS to submit reports on each child that is shot, killed, or who shot someone else. The department would also be required to report how it responded to those incidents. Senator Corey McCray of Baltimore sponsors that bill, saying the frustration stems from a strained relationship with DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi.
When our young scholars are engaged or involved in something, whether it's a shooting, non-fatal shooting, or homicide, it's our responsibility as adults to make sure that we're thinking about what does the after action, how are we wrapping our arms around these young scholars, and how do we make sure that they have the tools and resources to be able to move forward.
Are you hopeful that DJS will comply and that there will be a report by December 1st?
I believe that they'll comply, and I think that we'll be in a better situation. We get the same type of information for adults with Department of Public Safety. I think that we can move in a better posture with DJS and our juveniles.
Well, the Senate could vote on the proposal as early as the end of this week. Lawmakers are also discussing a multi-billion-dollar climate plan as the state tries to navigate a looming budget deficit. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost takes us through the debate.
Several of these proposals remain stuck in committee, while supporters remain optimistic, saying there's still time for action. The big question remains, and that's how to fund it.
A beautiful sunny March day serving as a backdrop for a call to action from the League of Conservation Voters.
All of it is working towards building a cleaner, more sustainable and equitable future in Maryland.
The group pushing for a slew of climate solution bills, from the Brighter Tomorrow Act to the Reclaim Renewable Energy Act, calling to stop classifying burning trash as a renewable energy.
Senate President Ferguson and Speaker Jones, it's time to call this bill for a vote now.
Or even the whole Watershed Act. There's a common theme woven throughout: money.
We can chew gum and walk at the same time and get more done with the limited taxpayer dollars we have to invest in our critical Chesapeake Bay goals.
We have to invest more in climate solutions, and the state budget is tight. We can't afford to keep throwing our money away on trash incinerators.
How to pay for these plans, given the state's billion-dollar budget deficit in just a few years, remains a big question, especially as the State Department of Environment rolling out a plan for clean electricity for all Marylanders by 2035, among other climate change proposals. But the problem? The $1 billion price tag for the MDE proposal. In January, the secretary briefing lawmakers, noting federal grants will only cover some of the need.
That's not enough. We need to rely on Maryland.
The state arguing Marylanders can't afford not to make this investment.
This is good for the economy.
But the reality is, Maryland lawmakers already committed the state to moving on some of these climate goals, like reaching 100% clean energy by 2035.
They are the law of the land here in Maryland.
To serve as a down payment of sorts, Governor Wes Moore setting $90 million aside for the state's climate goals in the state budget. That proposal likely to change, and so far it's unclear if that down payment will be realized.
Why should lawmakers look at some of these proposals as an important move to take this year, given all of the other priorities that remain on the table and the possibility of cuts and tax raises to pay for them?
The big deadline